Every year, the RISE Summit at UVM focuses on rural Vermont and how research and collaboration helps boost our rural communities. What's on the agenda this year? We're finding out today on Across the Fence. Hello, Vermont. Impactful research is rooted in real-life problems with the goal of making a meaningful difference in people's lives. It's not enough just to identify problems. It's about forging relationships to orchestrate solutions. When we're talking about Vermont, that's where UVM's Leahy Institute for Rural Partnerships comes in, and the 4th annual RISE Summit being held June 16th at the Davis Center on campus. Forging relationships sounds easy, right? But how do you actually do it? What works? Those are the types of questions RISE is designed to address, and then some. Joining me to talk about this year's summit are Tricia Coates, the director of the Leahy Institute for Rural Partnerships, and Dr. Kate Mays, an assistant professor in UVM's Community Development and Applied Economics Department, who will be part of the summit's keynote panel addressing the question, how might artificial intelligence impact rural Vermont? Tricia Coates and Dr. Mays, welcome.
Thank you so much for having us.
It's really nice to have you both here. Exploring the potential impact of AI on rural Vermont, Tricia, does artificial intelligence fall into the problem or the solution category?
Great question.
Or is that the point of the panel?
Great question. Well, let me back up and just capture two words from your question. Rural Vermont. You know, UVM is Vermont's land-grant institution, and that means we have 3 jobs that we need to do. One is teach, the other is research, and the third is to provide service to the state. At the Leahy Institute for Rural Partnerships, we're in this wonderful position to try to pull all of those things together and to work with Vermonters who are really on the ground trying to address some really big challenges and find opportunities in their communities, in their regional economy. So let me get to your question. Mm-hmm. So when we think about how the future of our economy looks here in Vermont, and we think about how we'd like every community to have an opportunity to prosper, big questions come up. Do we have the infrastructure we need? Do we have the talent we need? Do we have the opportunities? How shall we consider a new technology like AI? Mm-hmm. How
and
shall
potentially
we
disruptive technology? Like
very.
AI.
Let's just call it disruptive.
Maybe the ultimate disruptive technology
yeah, so
at this moment
I know
in
we
time.
have a lot to talk about on that topic, but the question for UVM with this AI is how can research support good decision making by the state in this moment?
Yeah, it's a good way to take it. So Kate, what is going to be your take on AI?
Yeah, I mean, for me, the main issue that I'm thinking about with AI right now is how can the technology be developed and deployed in a way that aligns with our human values, our well-being, supports human thriving. It is a disruptive technology, and I think it has a great potential to improve our lives, having innovative breakthroughs in science and medicine, for example. But I don't think that's the current trajectory that we're on right now with AI. A lot of money and attention is being paid to generative AI, so tools like ChatGPT, which are doing kind of amazing seeming things, right? Like it's mimicking human language, creativity, even thought processes in a way that is shocking to have, happened in such a quick time, and it's advancing so quickly. In part because there's so much.
ChatGPT even hit the public.
Wild.
It's still
2022, 2021, and here we are.
It's under 5 years.
I started studying this in 2018. I could not have imagined that I'd be talking about it in this way at this time. But so it's doing amazing seeming things. I would say though that a lot of the generative AI tools are solutions looking for a problem. Like the problem has never been that we need more writers, poets, musicians, coders, researchers, and so on. Like those have traditionally been highly coveted and or well-paid jobs. We don't need AI to actually be doing that work. That's work that humans like to do, right? And so, I think for the people who are able to leverage those tools, artists, coders, researchers, and so on, the ones who are benefiting the most are already experts. And so I'm really concerned at this moment in time right, about how do we ensure that we continue developing human expertise, that we're not de-skilling people along the way, and make sure that it benefits everybody.
It's an important conversation. So at home, this was like a little bit like your preview of what the RISE conference is like, because the keynote is a panel discussion, and then throughout the day there's other breakout sessions. A lot of this is about talking and hearing from experts, but also from multiple different viewpoints, right? Like, what else is happening?
Yeah,
tell me about
exactly. I mean, what's exciting about RISE is we hear researchers, mostly from UVM, but from around the country, really grappling with big questions like the future of rural economies with AI, like how we support thriving small rural schools.
Always bringing it back to those rural communities.
How climate threats sort of are a thread through all of our planning for the future. So there's a lot of big ideas. It's all grounded in community need. So if you come to RISE on June 16th, and we hope you do, you'll not only have an opportunity to hear and interact with researchers grappling with these big questions, but we've got a number of workshops and breakout sessions on just how do these research partnerships come together. So,
well, let's talk a little bit more about those partnerships, because how does the Leahy Institute approach community and university collaboration?
Yeah, thank you.
See, perfect question.
And it's something we talk about every day, because we can always do it better, but it really starts with an identification of the needs of the community, and that gets back to our land grant mission of service to state. So, for example, we've identified a need for our regional and state agencies to be able to plan using data. So we're trying to establish a way for a tool for them to use to access in an open source manner data that is publicly accessible, but much more user friendly for those folks trying to plan for the future.
I know that you had a couple other projects you were going to talk about, like Heather Darby, big friend of the show.
Yeah,
she's
an ATF star, as I think.
We love Heather Darby.
So I would love to talk about Heather, because she and her team do work that's very grounded in the needs of the Vermont farming community. She identified a need related to farmers working with new digital tools, and just they all together started asking questions about we're gathering data about our soil, about our crops, about our water. Where is it going, and who's storing it, and how do we access it? So she's pulled together a collaboration with farmers' watershed groups across the state, and they're doing a farmer-led research collaboration that we've put together and funded.
Yeah, so these are the types of things that people hear more about at the conference, right? And then also maybe even some of the types of partnerships and collaborations that are generated at the conference as people meet each other.
We hope so.
Well, so why are partnerships important for impactful research?
Yeah, well, again, I think there's a spectrum of research that happens at the University of Vermont, from basic research that we learn from, that we can then take and really try to understand how information, data, knowledge can be applied to the problems that we're all grappling with. So let me talk about another example we have.
Okay. And then I want to ask Kate about AI again. Otherwise,
you need another show, Amy.
We do need another show. We're trying to do many things here at the same time.
Quickly, there's a need in Vermont for better locally based weather monitoring. We are facing climate hazards, and we don't have adequate tools to tell us when weather is going to occur in specific locations around the state. We are one of 12 states that does not have a Mesonet, which is a statewide weather monitoring. So the Leahy Institute has funded a project with UVM's Water Resources Institute to plan and set up a weather monitoring system across the state. And so that data is going to be helpful to the National Weather Service, Agency of Agriculture, including Secretary Tebbets, who's been a great partner, and with emergency managers and planners.
Kate, on the front of partnerships, I know that actually in that AI realm, you also have been doing some work with the farming community.
Yeah, I've just started some research reaching out to farmers in Vermont to ask what their attitudes are about AI, what they might think about with adopting AI. There's a larger national push for agriculture to adopt AI, and so there's a concern, right, that smaller, medium-sized farms will get left behind if these tools are primarily built for larger commodity crop farms. And so doing some exploratory research to see how are farmers thinking about this, what do they want, you know, what do they value in their work as farmers, and so what would they like to preserve in that work? In what ways would AI not be disruptive in a negative way, but actually be augmentative to them, additive to their work?
Yeah, well, that's going to be a fascinating conversation. Tricia, what is your best pitch for why folks who might be watching this should attend? And there's different ways they can attend. We'll talk about it at the end here, because they can attend virtually, they can attend in person. Why should folks come?
Yeah, RISE is a high energy event. People leave with a spring in their step, and they usually leave either having learned something new that might be helpful to them in their work. They will definitely leave having talked to people who might be facing the same challenges, have new ideas, or who could just be a peer along the way. It's one day that is very much looked forward to by a lot of folks on campus and off.
Good. Well, you have had a nice teaser of the event, and the RISE Summit is being held June 16th at the Davis Center on the UVM campus. Registration is open right now. You can attend in person or virtually, like we said. More information, including the complete agenda for the one-day event, is available on the website right there on your screen. Get signed up. Tricia Coates and Dr. Kate Mays, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having us.
It's a pleasure to have you. And as always, thank you, Vermont, for learning and exploring with me today, and thanks to the team that makes Across the Fence possible. I'm Amy Fenley. This is Across the Fence. Come back and let's learn and explore again tomorrow.